My name is Amanda, and this is the story of how I survived growing up with a sister who could have given Machiavelli a run for his money. I was born in a small town to ordinary working-class parents. Mom was a receptionist at a local dentist's office, and Dad worked as a mechanic. They were good people, hardworking and honest, but perhaps a bit too trusting for their own good. When I came into the world, it was a difficult birth. The doctors told my mom she wouldn't be able to have any more children. So, for 5 years, I was their miracle baby, their only child. Those first 5 years were nice, normal. I have vague memories of picnics in the park, of Dad teaching me to ride a bike, of Mom reading me bedtime stories. But it all changed when I was 5, and my parents got the shock of their lives. Mom was pregnant again. I remember the day they told me I was going to be a big sister. They were practically glowing with excitement, and I caught their enthusiasm. I imagined having a little sister to play with, to share secrets with, to be best friends with. God, I was so naive. Sarah was born when I was 5.5. From the moment she came home from the hospital, it was like a switch had been flipped. Suddenly, I wasn't the miracle child anymore. Amanda, be quiet. Your sister's sleeping. Amanda, don't touch that. It's for your sister. Amanda, why can't you be more like your sister? It started small, you know? Little things that I brushed off as normal sibling stuff. But as Sarah grew, so did her talents. I remember her 7th birthday. Mom had spent hours on this beautiful cake, covered in delicate sugar roses. It was a work of art. The guests had just arrived when we heard Mom's horrified gasp from the kitchen. The cake was ruined, the roses all but destroyed. And there was Sarah, pointing at me with an accusing finger. Amanda did it, she said, her voice trembling in a way that adults find impossible to disbelieve. I saw her. I stood there, stunned, as Sarah produced my favorite t-shirt, now smeared with cake and frosting. I don't know how she got it, how she planned it all. She was 7, but she had the cunning of someone much older. I spent the rest of the party locked in my bedroom, listening to the muffled sounds of laughter and celebration downstairs. As the sun set and the house quieted, I heard my door creak open. Sarah stood there, a slice of cake in her hand and a smile on her face that sent chills down my spine. Want some cake, big sister? She whispered, her eyes glittering in the dim light. I saved you a piece. With a rose and everything. I stared at her, this young demon in a party dress, and felt the first stirrings of real fear. What kind of 7-year-old could pull off something like this? And more importantly, what else was she capable of? As the years rolled by, Sarah's manipulation tactics only grew more sophisticated. Every day became a new battle, and I was constantly on edge, wondering what she'd do next. When I was 14 and Sarah was 9, I started to notice my school supplies going missing or getting damaged. At first, I thought I was just being careless, misplacing things here and there. But then I started finding my notebooks with pages torn out, pencils broken in half, and textbooks with scribbles all over the important parts. One day, I caught Sarah red-handed, a pair of scissors in her hand and my history essay in shreds on her bedroom floor. "What are you doing?" I yelled, snatching the remains of my homework from her. Sarah's eyes welled up with crocodile tears. I was just trying to help you cut out some pictures for your project," she sniffled. "This isn't a project, it's my essay. It's due tomorrow." But it was too late. Mom had heard the commotion and came running. "What's going on here?" Before I could explain, Sarah burst into full-blown sobs. I was just trying to help Amanda with her homework, but she yelled at me. Mom turned to me, her face a mask of disappointment. "Amanda, how could you? Your sister was only trying to help. Apologize to your sister right now." I stood there, seething with anger and frustration. Sarah peeked at me from behind Mom's legs, a sly smile playing on her lips. "I'm sorry," I gritted out, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. That night, I had to stay up until 3 a.m. rewriting my essay. The next day at school, I could barely keep my eyes open. My teacher wasn't impressed with my sloppy handwriting and obvious fatigue. Amanda, this isn't like you, she said, frowning at my paper. Please put more effort into your schoolwork. I'd hate to have to call your parents. But of course, she did end up calling my parents. And of course, they blamed me for not being responsible enough, for not taking my studies seriously. Sarah sat at the dinner table, quietly eating her food with a satisfied smirk, as Mom and Dad lectured me about the importance of education. As I grew older, Sarah's tactics evolved. When I started showing interest in boys in high school, she found new ways to torment me. My first boyfriend, Jake, broke up with me after hearing a rumor that I'd been cheating on him with his best friend. I was devastated, but when I confronted Sarah about it, she just shrugged. How could I have started that rumor, she said innocently. I don't even know your friends from school. But I saw the glint in her eye, the barely concealed satisfaction at my pain. She was getting better at covering her tracks, at maintaining her facade of innocence. As my high school years progressed, I became more determined than ever to secure my escape. I poured all my energy into a special project that I hoped would be my ticket to a prestigious college far away from Sarah's clutches. But I knew better than to let my guard down, even for a moment. My friend Melissa was the only person I truly trusted. We'd been close since elementary school, and she was well aware of Sarah's true nature. I need you to keep something for me, I told her one afternoon as we sat in her room. I pulled out a thick folder from my backpack. This is my project for the university grant competition. If I win, I get a full ride to Westfield College. Wow, that's amazing, Melissa exclaimed, then her face fell slightly. But, why are you giving it to me? I took a deep breath. Because if Sarah finds out how important this is to me, she'll find a way to destroy it. I need you to keep it safe. I'll work on a dummy version at home. Melissa's eyes widened in understanding. Clever, she said, taking the folder and locking it in her desk drawer. Don't worry, I'll guard it with my life. For weeks, I worked on 2 versions of the project, the real one, safely tucked away at Melissa's house, and a decoy version at home. I made sure to leave the decoy version conspicuously on my desk, knowing Sarah wouldn't be able to resist snooping. The day before the submission deadline, it happened. I was in the kitchen when I heard Sarah's sickeningly sweet voice. Oh no, Amanda, I'm so sorry. I rushed to the living room to find Sarah standing over my desk, a glass of orange juice appended over my decoy project. Papers were soaked, ink running in streaks across the pages. I was just bringing you a drink, Sarah said, her eyes wide with feigned innocence. I tripped. It was an accident, I swear. Our parents came running at the commotion. Mom gasped at the sight of the ruined papers. Oh, Amanda, she sighed. You should be more careful about where you leave important things. I saw the glint of triumph in Sarah's eyes, the slight upturn of her lips as she waited for my reaction. But this time I was ready. I smiled. The look of confusion on Sarah's face was almost comical. It's okay, I said calmly. That was just a backup copy. I already submitted the real project last week. The triumph in Sarah's eyes flickered and died, replaced by a flash of anger so quick I almost missed it. Our parents, oblivious as always, praised me for my foresight. A few weeks later, the results of the competition were announced. I'd won the grant, a full scholarship to Westfield College, 3 states away. As I read the acceptance letter, tears of joy and relief streamed down my face. I was getting out. I was finally escaping. But my moment of triumph was short-lived. As I packed my bags for college, I overheard my parents talking in hushed tones. It's a shame, Mom was saying. I wish Sarah had gotten an opportunity like this. She deserves it more. I know, Dad agreed. Amanda's smart, but Sarah, she's special. She could really go places with a chance like that. Their words stung, but I was past caring. In a few days, I'd be gone, starting a new life far away from Sarah's manipulations and my parents' blind favoritism. The next few years were like a breath of fresh air. At Westfield College, I thrived. I made genuine friends, excelled in my studies, and even started to heal from the emotional trauma of my childhood. I majored in finance, discovering a talent for numbers and analysis that I never knew I had. Whatever the reason, I graduated at the top of my class and landed a job at a prestigious financial firm in the city. Life was good. I had my own apartment, a job I loved, and a sense of peace I'd never known before. I kept in touch with my parents, visiting them on holidays and occasional weekends, but these visits were always tense. Sarah was still living at home, having chosen to attend a local community college. Every time I saw her, I could feel her resentment simmering just beneath the surface. It was a typical Friday at work when I got the call that would shatter my carefully constructed peace. I was in the middle of analyzing some market trends when my phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Amanda," she said, her voice tight with tension. "We need to talk. It's about your sister. She's graduating soon, and, well, we think it would be best if she came to live with you in the city." I nearly dropped the phone. "What? Mom, no. That's not possible." "Don't be selfish, Amanda," my mother snapped. "Sarah needs this opportunity. And you have that big apartment all to yourself. Plus, we need you to cover her tuition for college." I felt like I was drowning. All the old feelings of helplessness and fear came rushing back. "Mom, I can't. My apartment isn't big enough, and I can't afford." "Can't afford it?" my mother interrupted. "With that fancy job of yours? Don't lie to us, Amanda. We know you're doing well for yourself." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Mom, it's not about the money. Sarah and we don't get along. You know that." "Oh, not this again," my mother sighed. "Amanda, when are you going to let go of this childish jealousy? Your sister needs you. This is what family does." I closed my eyes, feeling a headache coming on. "I'm sorry, Mom. The answer is no. I can't have Sarah living with me, and I won't pay for her tuition. I have my own life, my own expenses." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When my mother spoke again, her voice was cold. "I see. Well, I hope you're happy with your decision, Amanda. Don't bother coming home for Christmas this year." Later that evening, as I was trying to distract myself with work, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Sarah. "You'll regret this," it read. Just 3 words, but they sent a chill down my spine. I tried to shake it off. Sarah was hundreds of miles away. What could she possibly do to me now? Months flew by after that tense phone call with my parents. I threw myself into my work, trying to push thoughts of my family to the back of my mind. My life in the city continued. I excelled at my job, made new friends, and even started dating a bit. Then, on a random Tuesday, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Amanda," she said, her voice uncharacteristically hesitant. "We need you to come home. It's important." Against my better judgment, I took a month's vacation from work and boarded a plane back to my hometown. As I walked up the familiar driveway, a sense of dread washed over me. What could be so important that they needed me home for a whole month? We gathered in the living room, an uneasy silence falling over us. Finally, my mother spoke. "Your great-aunt Mildred called us," she said. "She wants all 4 of us to visit her in Hawaii. She's even booked the plane tickets herself." I blinked in surprise. Aunt Mildred had always been kind to me as a child, but I hadn't seen her in years. "All 4 of us?" I asked, glancing at Sarah. Sarah snorted. "It's ridiculous. Amanda doesn't need to go. She hasn't even talked to Aunt Mildred in years." "Hush," my father said sternly. This was Mildred's condition. All 4 of us, or none of us. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. I could almost see the gears turning in everyone's heads. Finally, my mother voiced what we were all thinking. Do you think she might be dying? That this is about her will?" The atmosphere in the room shifted. I saw a glimmer of something in Sarah's eyes. Greed? Excitement? It made me uneasy. We shouldn't jump to conclusions, I said quickly. Maybe she just wants to see all of us. But even as I said it, I knew it was unlikely. Aunt Mildred had always been a bit of a recluse. For her to suddenly want a family reunion in Hawaii, it had to be something big. As we discussed the logistics of the trip, I found myself getting excited despite my reservations. I had fond memories of Aunt Mildred from my childhood. She had always been kind to me, always had a moment to listen when no one else did. The thought of seeing her again, of spending time in beautiful Hawaii, was appealing. But there was still a nagging worry in the back of my mind. I glanced at Sarah, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since her initial outburst. She caught my eye and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was the same smile she'd given me countless times before pulling some elaborate scheme to get me in trouble. I tried to shake off the feeling. We were adults now. Surely Sarah wouldn't try anything, not with so much potentially at stake. And yet, the day of our departure finally arrived. Despite my lingering unease, I found myself caught up in the excitement of the trip. We arrived at the airport, our family presenting a united front for what felt like the first time in years. As we approached the security checkpoint, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this trip could be a fresh start for all of us. How naive I was. Just as we were about to go through security, a stern-faced officer approached me. "Ma'am, I need you to come with me," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Confused and a little scared, I looked at my family. "What's going on?" The officer's face remained impassive. "We received an anonymous tip that you're carrying prohibited items in your luggage. We need to do a thorough check." My heart sank as I turned to look at Sarah. There it was, that familiar gleeful smile, the one that always spelled trouble for me. In that moment, I knew exactly what had happened. "It was her," I said, pointing at Sarah. "She sent that message. She's trying to sabotage me." My parents' faces clouded over with anger, but to my shock, it was directed at me. "Amanda," my mother hissed. "How dare you accuse your sister like that? Again with this nonsense?" I tried to protest, but my father cut me off. "Enough, Amanda. Go with the officer. We'll sort this out." Just then, an announcement echoed through the terminal: final boarding call for Flight 372 to Honolulu. My parents exchanged a look of panic. "That's our flight," my mother said. "Please," I begged, my voice cracking. "Wait for me. I'll sort this out quickly, I promise." But my pleas fell on deaf ears. My father shook his head, not meeting my eyes. "We can't miss this flight, Amanda. You know how important this is." "We'll see you in Hawaii," my mother added, already turning away. I watched in disbelief as my parents walked away, not even glancing back. Only Sarah looked back, her triumphant smile cutting me to the core. Then she too disappeared into the crowd, leaving me alone with the security officer. The next few hours were a blur of invasive searches and endless questions. They went through every item in my luggage, every pocket of my clothing. I had to wait for a female officer to be available for a pat-down. By the time they finally concluded that I wasn't carrying anything illegal, my family's plane was long gone. As I sat in the now quiet airport, I faced a choice. I could book a flight for the next day, join my family in Hawaii, and try to salvage this disaster of a trip. Or I looked at the departure board. There was a flight leaving for my city in an hour. Back to my job, my friends, my life. Away from the drama and pain that seemed to follow my family wherever they went. In that moment, I made my decision. I walked up to the ticket counter and bought a one-way ticket home. As I boarded the plane, I felt a mixture of hurt, anger, and an odd sense of relief. Yes, I was letting Aunt Mildred down, and I felt guilty about that. But for once, I was choosing myself. My peace, my sanity. A few days after returning home, I was settling back into my routine, trying to push the airport incident out of my mind. I was just beginning to relax when my phone rang. It was my mother. Amanda, her voice trembled, thick with emotion. My heart raced, sensing something was terribly wrong. Your sister. Sarah's been arrested. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Arrested? What for? My mother's story came out in a rush of words, each one more shocking than the last. They had arrived at Aunt Mildred's house in Hawaii, only to find her furious that I wasn't there. She refused to discuss her will without all four of us present, Mom explained. We had to stay at her house while we tried to figure out what to do. I felt a pang of guilt, quickly overshadowed by my mother's next words. Then it happened. Your aunt, she almost fell down the stairs. She could have broken her neck, Amanda. What? Is she okay? I asked, concerned for the aunt I remembered so fondly. She's fine, thank goodness. But Amanda, it wasn't an accident. It was Sarah. She pushed her. I felt the blood drain from my face. How do you know? There were cameras. Hidden all over the house. They caught everything. The pieces started falling into place. The anonymous tip at the airport, Sarah's triumphant smile, it had all been part of her plan. A plan that had backfired spectacularly. Aunt Mildred called the police, my mother continued, her voice breaking. When they came to arrest Sarah, she lost it. Started screaming about how she just wanted the money, how she'd been waiting for years for this opportunity. I listened in stunned silence as my mother recounted Sarah's meltdown. How she'd screamed that she hated our parents, that she was just waiting for them to die so she could inherit everything. We were blind, Amanda, my mother sobbed. How could we not have seen it? How could we have been so wrong about her? As I listened to my mother's broken words, a whirlwind of emotions swept through me. Shock at Sarah's actions. Vindication that her true nature had finally been revealed. Sadness for my parents, whose world had just been shattered. And buried beneath it all, a tiny, shameful spark of satisfaction that they finally understood what I'd been trying to tell them for years. As we ended the call, I sat in silence, trying to wrap my head around everything that had happened. The sister I'd grown up with, who I'd always known was manipulative, had crossed a line I never thought possible. She'd tried to seriously harm our great-aunt, all for the chance at an inheritance. When I arrived at my childhood home, the atmosphere was completely different from my last visit. Gone was the tension and unspoken resentment. Instead, I found my parents looking older, more vulnerable, but also more open than I'd ever seen them. Amanda, my mother said, her voice thick with emotion as she embraced me. We're so sorry. We've been blind for so long. My father, a man never comfortable with emotional displays, simply placed a hand on my shoulder. We should have listened to you, he said gruffly. Can you forgive us? It was a moment I'd dreamed of for years, but now that it was here, I found myself overwhelmed. Of course, I managed to say, tears welling up in my eyes. Of course I forgive you. We spent hours talking, really talking, for what felt like the first time in years. They shared their shock at Sarah's actions, their guilt over dismissing my concerns for so long, and their fear for the future. I listened, offering support and finally feeling heard. But our fragile peace was soon shattered. We received word that Aunt Mildred had withdrawn her statement to the police, and Sarah was being released. The news hit us like a physical blow. She can't come back here, my father said, his voice firm. We can't trust her anymore. What followed was a painful but necessary process. My parents, with my support, filed for Sarah's eviction. They presented the court with evidence of her threats in Hawaii, her actions towards Aunt Mildred, along with a history of manipulative behavior. The court ruled in our favor. Sarah was to be evicted from the family home. When she came, my parents didn't even let her in the house. They left her belongings on the porch, a final, symbolic separation. Sarah's response was predictably spiteful. As she drove away, presumably out of our lives for good, she left one last parting shot, a string of vicious curses spray-painted on the side of the house. It was childish, petty, and so typically Sarah that it almost made me laugh. Almost. Then, out of the blue, I received a call from Aunt Mildred. "Amanda, dear," she said, her voice warm despite everything that had happened. "I think it's time you came to visit me in Hawaii. Just you this time." I was hesitant at first, but something in her voice convinced me. A week later, I found myself on a plane to Hawaii, unsure of what to expect. Aunt Mildred's house was beautiful, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. She greeted me with a warm hug, looking far more spry than I'd imagined given recent events. "I'm so glad you're here," she said, leading me into her study. "There's something I need to show you." She pulled out a document, her will. As I scanned the pages, my eyes widened in shock. Aunt Mildred had left everything, her house, her investments, everything, to me. "But, why?" I stammered, looking up at her in disbelief. Aunt Mildred smiled, a twinkle in her eye. "Because, my dear, you're the only one who never came here looking for a handout. You're the only one who saw me as family, not as a potential windfall." More than the inheritance itself, what touched me was the recognition. After years of being overlooked and dismissed, someone had seen my true worth. As I hugged Aunt Mildred, tears in my eyes, I felt like I was finally, truly coming home.
Hey, I'm Florence. I'm 24, slinging coffee by day and chasing my writing dreams by night. Not exactly where I thought I'd be at this point, but hey, a girl's got to eat, right? "Florence, table 3 needs a refill." My manager calls out. I nod, grabbing the pot. Just another day in paradise. As I top off mugs, my phone buzzes. Mom, probably calling about Brittany's engagement party. I brace myself and answer on my break. "Florence, honey, have you picked up your dress for the party yet?" she asks. I sigh, "Not yet, Mom. I've been busy with work and, well, made sure it's not too flashy. We don't want to outshine Brittany on her big day, right? Heaven forbid anyone steal the spotlight from golden child Brittany." After my shift, I meet up with my best friend, Alex, at our favorite diner. "So how's the great American novel coming along?" he asks, sliding into the booth. I groan, burying my face in my hands. "It's not. I can't focus with all this party drama." Alex rolls his eyes. "Ah, yes, the engagement extravaganza. How's dear cousin Brittany?" "Perfect as always," I mutter. "You know how it is. Brittany's getting married, and well, here." "Hey," Alex says, his tone serious. "You're doing just fine. Don't let them get in your head." I nod, but it's hard. Every family gathering is a minefield of comparisons and helpful suggestions about my life choices. Later that week, I'm at my parents' house, helping with party prep. Mom's in full stress mode. "Florence, be a dear and hang these streamers. And remember, Brittany likes them just so." I bite back a sarcastic comment and start hanging. That's when I hear Brittany's voice floating from the kitchen. "Oh, Aunt Karen, you're too kind." "Florence?" "Oh, she's finding her way. Bless her heart." My cheeks burn. Classic Brittany, sweet as pie to your face, sharp as a knife behind your back. As the day winds down, Dad pulls me aside. "Flory, I know things have been tough, but try to be happy for Brittany, okay? No more of your incidents." Incidents? Like the time Brittany's harmless prank at my high school graduation left me with a sprained ankle. But sure, I'm the problem. Despite it all, I'm determined to make this work, to be the bigger person. As I leave, Mom calls out, "Don't forget, the party starts at 6 sharp. And Florence, do try to smile more." I force a grin and wave goodbye. But as I drive home, I can't shake this feeling of dread. Brittany's parties always end in disaster for me, one way or another. But this time will be different, right? This time, I'll keep my cool, play nice, and maybe, just maybe, get through one family event without drama. The date of Brittany's engagement party arrives, and I'm determined to stay positive. I show up early, plastering on my best fake smile as I help set up. "Florence, you actually clean up nice," Brittany chirps, eyeing my dress. "Though, honey, you might want to ease up on the carbs, just saying." I grit my teeth. "Thanks, Britt, you look lovely." As guests pour in, I play the role of the perfect, supportive cousin. Smile, nod, laugh at the right moments. But Brittany seems determined to push my buttons. During the toasts, she clinks her glass. I just want to thank everyone for coming. Even Florence managed to tear herself away from her little coffee shop dreams. Laughter ripples through the crowd, my cheeks burn. Alex, bless him, squeezes my hand under the table. Ignore her, he whispers. But Brittany's just warming up. As we move to the buffet, she loudly comments, "Oh Flo, maybe skip the cake. Wouldn't want to strain those dress seams." I bite my tongue so hard I taste blood. Then come the group photos. Brittany insists I stand at the back, for height reasons. Thought we're the same height. Brittany, I finally snap. Can we not do this today? She blinks innocently. Do what? I'm just trying to include you, Flo. No need to be so sensitive. As the party progresses, her jokes grow meaner, more pointed. Each one chips away at my resolve. Remember when Florence thought she'd be a famous author by now? Bless her heart. Oh, Flo's still single. Well, not everyone can be lucky in love and life. I'm at my breaking point when Brittany announces a special surprise. Florence, be a dear and help me in the kitchen, she calls sweetly. Against my better judgment, I follow her. In the kitchen, a large pot sits on the stove. I thought we'd do a little tea ceremony, Brittany explains. You know, for cultured people. As she lifts the pot, I see a glint in her eye that makes my blood run cold. Before I can react, she stumbles. Searing pain explodes across my chest and arms as boiling water cascades over me. I scream, my vision blurring. Oh my God. Brittany shrieks. It was an accident. Florence, why did you get in the way? Through the haze of pain, I see her smirk. This was no accident. Chaos erupts. People rush in, voices overlapping. Call an ambulance. Brittany, are you okay? Alex pushes through the crowd, his face pale. Florence, we need to get her to the hospital now. But Mom steps in, her voice tight. Now, let's not overreact. I'm sure it's not that bad. Florence, stop making such a fuss. You're ruining Brittany's party. I can't believe what I'm hearing. My skin feels like it's on fire. And they're worried about the party. Are you kidding me? Alex explodes. She needs medical attention. Brittany sniffles dramatically. I feel terrible. Florence, can't you just put some ice on it? That's when I snap. Through gritted teeth, I manage to say, Alex, get me out of here. As Alex leads me out, ignoring my family's protests, my phone starts pinging like crazy. Later, I'll see a barrage of angry messages. How could you make such a scene? You always have to make everything about you. Brittany is devastated. I hope you're happy. In the car, racing toward the hospital, the pain is overwhelming. But something else cuts deeper. The realization that my family cares more about a party than my well-being. You're going to be okay, Alex keeps saying, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I nod, fighting back tears. But as the adrenaline fades and the true horror of what just happened sinks in, I can't help but wonder, will anything ever be okay again? The hospital room is quiet except for the steady beep of machines. I stare at my bandaged arms, still processing the events of the past few days. Alex walks in, his face a mix of concern and anger. How you holding up, Flo? Like I've been boiled alive, I mutter. Any word from the family? He hesitates. Your parents called. They want you to consider not pressing charges, for the sake of family unity. I laugh bitterly, wincing at the pain it causes. Family unity, right. Just then, we heard voices outside my hospital room. It was my aunt and uncle. Brittany's parents. I don't know why Florence is making such a big deal out of this, my aunt hissed. Brittany's always been a bit competitive with her, but she'd never do something like this on purpose. My uncle sighed. Remember the science fair incident, or Florence's college acceptance party? There was a pause. Those were different, my aunt insisted. Brittany was just a kid then. As their voices faded, Alex and I exchanged shocked looks. Science fair incident, he asked. Memories flooded back. The night before judging, my project mysteriously ruined and Brittany winning first place. I always assumed it was an accident, but now... Alex, I said slowly, I think we need to do some digging. Over the next few days, as I recovered, Alex became a one-man investigation team. He talked to old classmates, dug up yearbooks, and even sweet-talked my grandmother into sharing some old family videos. What he uncovered made me sick. Flo, look at this, he said, showing me his phone. It was a series of texts from Brittany to her friend, dated the day before the engagement party. Can't wait to put little Miss Perfect in her place tomorrow. Got a special surprise planned. She planned it, I whispered, feeling numb. All of it. But the revelations didn't stop there. Alex had compiled a list, my ruined science fair project. Brittany had bragged to friends about sabotaging it. The accidental punch spill on my prom dress, premeditated. Even my recent breakup, Brittany had been feeding my ex lies about me for months. As the evidence piled up, my family's pressure to forgive and forget grew more intense. Florence, honey, my mom said during one visit, I know Brittany can be difficult, but she's family. Can't you just let this go? I stared at her, disbelieving. Let it go. Mom, I have second-degree burns. She flinched. I know, but. No buts. I cut her off. This ends now. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. Oh, Flo, I feel just awful. It was a terrible accident. You forgive me, right? For the sake of the family? Brittany said, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. I looked at her, really looked at her, maybe for the first time. Drop the act, Brittany. I know everything. Her face changed, the mask slipping. Everything? The science fair, the prom dress, my ex, this accident, all of it. For a moment she looked cornered. Then her eyes narrowed. So what? It's not my fault you're so pathetic that taking you down is child's play. Gasps filled the room. We both turned to see my parents and Alex standing in the doorway, having heard everything. Brittany, my mom exclaimed, shocked. But Brittany was done pretending. Oh please, you all made it so easy, always comparing us, always pushing perfect Florence in my face. Well, guess what? I won. I always win. She stormed out, leaving the room in stunned silence. My parents looked shell-shocked. Alex was furious, and me? I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. I think, I said quietly, we need to talk about some changes in this family. I made a decision that shocked everyone. I was cutting ties with the toxic parts of my family, including my parents, who had enabled Brittany for years. Florence, you can't be serious, my mom pleaded over the phone. I am, I replied, my voice steady. I need to focus on healing, physically and emotionally. It wasn't easy, but with each day, I felt stronger. I poured my pain, anger, and hope into writing. The words flowed like never before, and before I knew it, I had a manuscript. Alex read it first. Flo, this is incredible. You have to publish it. To my surprise, extended family members and old friends reached out, offering their support. We always knew something was off with Brittany, my cousin Sarah admitted. We should have said something sooner. As I focused on my recovery and writing, news about Brittany trickled in. Her fiancé had called off the engagement after learning the truth, and her job had let her go due to character concerns. Meanwhile, my book, Burned But Not Broken, caught the attention of a publisher. Suddenly, I was doing interviews and book signings. The girl who once felt invisible was now being heard. One day, I received a call from my dad. Florence, we've been doing a lot of thinking and therapy. We'd like to try to make amends. I took a deep breath. I appreciate that, Dad, but I need more time. The day of my book launch arrived, and the venue was packed with supportive faces. Alex, my new friends, even some family members who had recognized the truth and made amends. As I stood at the podium, I caught sight of a familiar face slipping in at the back, Brittany, looking far less polished than I remembered. For a moment, our eyes met. I saw anger there, but also something else, regret? Envy? It didn't matter. I had moved on. Thank you all for coming, I began. This book is about survival, about rising from the ashes of betrayal and finding your own voice. As applause filled the room, a sense of peace washed over me. The road had been hard, but I had come out stronger. And as I looked out at the sea of supportive faces, I knew that while blood might be thicker than water, true family is the one you choose. And that's a wrap on Florence's journey from family scapegoat to successful author. Now I've got a question that might stir up some debate. If you were in Florence's shoes, would you ever consider reconciling with your parents, knowing they enabled years of abuse? Is there a point where family loyalty should end, or should we always leave the door open for redemption? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hey, I'm Megan Evans. Growing up in Chicago wasn't easy, especially in our crumbling apartment on the South Side. The walls were so thin you could hear everything, and the stench of mold seemed like it was a permanent resident. But the worst part, it wasn't the apartment, it was watching my parents slip further into their drug addictions every single day. "Meg, I'm hungry," my little brother Tyler would whisper, his big brown eyes wide with hope. "I know, Ty. Let's see what we can find," I'd answer, rummaging through nearly bare cupboards. At just 12 years old, I was more of a mom to Tyler than our own mother ever was. Our parents, well, they were like ghosts. They floated in and out of consciousness, leaving us to fend for ourselves. "Where's Mom and Dad?" Tyler asked one night, clutching his worn-out stuffed bear. "They're just resting, Ty. Don't worry, I'm here." The knocks on the door became routine. Child Protective Services would show up, always with their serious expressions and clipboards. "Megan, honey, are your parents home?" They'd ask. "They're at work," I'd lie, shielding Tyler behind me. Our grandparents, Robert and Linda Evans, lived in a fancy house in the suburbs. They'd visit maybe once a year, with disapproving looks and hushed arguments. "Robert, we can't just leave them like this," I overheard Grandma say once. "It's not our responsibility, Linda. They made their choices," Grandpa replied coldly. Then came the night that changed everything. Flashing lights, shouting, and the sight of our parents being led away in handcuffs. Tyler clung to me, sobbing. "It's okay, Ty. I've got you, I promised, even though fear gripped my heart." The next day, a social worker sat us down. "Megan, Tyler, we're going to take you somewhere safe. Together, right?" I asked, hoping for the best. The hesitation in the social worker's voice told me everything. "Your grandparents have agreed to take Tyler," she said softly. "What about Megan?" Tyler's voice trembled. "I'm sorry, sweetie. They feel they're too old to care for both of you." It felt like a punch to the gut. "But I take care of Tyler. He needs me," I cried. "I'm so sorry, Megan. We'll find you a good foster home." As we stood outside the CPS office, I hugged Tyler tightly. "Be good for Grandma and Grandpa, okay? I'll see you soon, promise," he whimpered. "Promise." I watched as he climbed into our grandparents' car, while I was led to a separate vehicle. The hardest thing I've ever done was pressing my hand against the window as our cars drove away in opposite directions. I silently vowed to find my way back to my little brother, no matter what it took. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. Now, at 28, I'm working as a social worker in the same system that shuffled me around like a deck of cards. Ironic, right? But at least I can use my broken childhood to help other kids. "Megan, got a sec?" My colleague Sarah poked her head into my cubicle. "Sure, what's up?" "Remember the case about your brother?" I stumbled across something weird in the system. My heart skipped a beat. "Weird how?" Sarah lowered her voice. "According to the records, your grandparents legally adopted Tyler when he was 10. The world tilted on its axis. That's impossible." I would have known. "I'm sorry, Meg. I thought you should know." I sat there, stunned, memories crashing over me. All those times I tried to reach out to Tyler, only to be shut down or given vague excuses. "Thanks, Sarah. I need to make a call." With shaking hands, I dialed Tyler's number. "Hey, little bro, how about a family dinner this weekend to celebrate your big exam results?" Sure. I guess that'd be cool." "You want me to ask Grandma and Grandpa?" "Yeah, that'd be great. It's been too long since we all got together, right?" The next few days were a blur of anger and preparation. By the time Saturday rolled around, I had a plan. I was going to get answers. The dinner started off pleasant enough. Small talk, compliments on the food, the usual dance of polite conversation. But I could feel the tension building inside me like a volcano about to erupt. "So, Tyler," I said, keeping my voice casual, "remember when we used to talk about getting adopted? Funny how things work out, huh?" Tyler looked confused. "What do you mean?" I saw Grandpa Robert stiffen, his fork clattering against his plate. Grandma Linda's eyes darted nervously between us. "Oh, you know," I continued, heart pounding, "how Grandma and Grandpa legally adopted you when you were 10. Isn't that right, Grandpa?" The silence was deafening. Tyler's jaw dropped. "What? No, that's not right, is it?" Grandpa Robert cleared his throat. "Now, Megan, I don't know where you got that idea." "Cut the crap," I snapped, all pretense gone. "I saw the records. You adopted Tyler and never told me. You kept us apart. Why?" Grandma Linda burst into tears. We thought it was for the best. You were always so difficult. I laughed bitterly. I was a child who lost everything, and you abandoned me. Tyler looked shell-shocked. They told me you chose to stay in foster care, that you didn't want to live with us. And you believed them? Did you ever try to contact me yourself? The guilt on his face was answer enough. Grandpa Robert tried to take control of the situation. Now listen here, young lady. No, you listen. I cut him off, my voice sharp. I want answers. Why did you leave me in the system? Why did you lie to Tyler? Why did you keep us apart all these years? The floodgates opened. Years of lies and manipulation spilled out. How they thought I was a bad influence on Tyler. How they worried I'd be too much trouble. How they convinced themselves that cutting me out was best for everyone. We did what we thought was right, Grandpa Robert insisted. Right for who? I demanded, my voice rising. Certainly not for me, and not for Tyler either. You robbed us of our relationship, of our chance to be a family. Tyler, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. I can't believe this. All these years I thought Megan didn't want me. I always wanted you, Ty. You were all I had left. The dinner dissolved into chaos. Grandma Linda sobbing, Grandpa Robert red-faced and defensive, and Tyler caught in the middle looking lost. As I drove home that night, emotions raged inside me. Anger, betrayal, grief, but also, strangely, a sense of relief. The truth was finally out. Now it was time to figure out what to do with it. After that disastrous dinner, I couldn't just let things lie. I needed the whole truth, no matter how ugly. So I did what I do best. I dug deep. Alicia, I need your help, I said to my best friend and fellow social worker one day at lunch. What's up, Meg? You look like you've seen a ghost. More like I've uncovered a graveyard of family secrets. Can you help me access some records? For weeks, we combed through financial documents, old emails, anything we could get our hands on. And what we found made my blood boil. Holy Meg, Alicia whispered one night as we pored over some bank statements. Look at this. Your grandparents had over $200,000 in a savings account when they refused to take you in. What? They told CPS they couldn't afford to care for both of us. But that was just the beginning. We discovered they had been receiving foster care benefits for Tyler before they adopted him. Money that was supposed to go toward his care, but instead funded vacations and a new car. I can't believe this, I muttered, scrolling through old emails. Look at how they talked about me to Tyler. Your sister's causing trouble again. Be glad you're not living with her. Behavior problems. They were poisoning him against me this whole time. Alicia placed a hand on my shoulder. Meg, there's something else you need to see. She pulled up company records from my grandfather's old firm. The numbers didn't add up. He's been embezzling, Alicia said quietly. For years, some of it went to Tyler's college fund. I felt sick. Not only had they abandoned me, but they were criminals too. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Can we talk? I need to know the truth. We met the next day at a small coffee shop. Tyler looked like he hadn't slept in days. Meg, I'm so sorry, he began. I should have questioned things more. I should have reached out. It's not your fault, Ty. They manipulated both of us. Tell me everything, he said, his voice shaking. I need to know what really happened. So I told him. I told him about the lies, the money, everything we had uncovered. His face grew paler with each revelation. I can't believe it, he whispered. My whole life, it's been built on lies. Not your whole life, Ty. We're still here. We can still be a family. As we talked, I felt a weight lifting. For the first time in years, I had my brother back. But I also had a decision to make. What was I going to do with all this information? That night, I tossed and turned, weighing my options. Could I really turn in my own grandparents? But then I thought about all the kids still stuck in the system. Kids like me who needed someone to fight for them. By morning, I knew what I had to do. It was time for the truth to come out, no matter the cost. Making that anonymous tip was the hardest thing I've ever done. But watching the fallout, that was a close second. It started with whispers around town, followed by the news reports. Local businessmen arrested for embezzlement. I saw Grandpa Robert's face plastered across the TV screen, looking older and smaller than I remembered. Tyler called me in a panic. Meg, what's going on? The FBI was at Grandma and Grandpa's house. I know, Ty. I'm the one who tipped them off. There was a long silence, and then good. They deserve it. Through it all, Tyler stood by me. We met up almost every day, piecing together our fractured relationship. I can't believe I never knew about your foster homes, he said one day. All those times I complained about curfews. Hey, you didn't know. What matters is we're here now. As the dust settled, I threw myself into my work. All those years of pain, I used them to fight for change in the system, and people started to notice. Megan, your proposal for improving sibling connections in foster care is brilliant, my boss said one day. We're implementing it statewide. But the real healing, it came in unexpected ways. Like the day Tyler convinced me to join him at a support group for adults with childhood trauma. Hi, I'm Megan, I said, my voice shaking. And I guess I'm here because I'm finally ready to let go of the past. As I shared my story, something shifted inside me. The anger, the hurt. It was still there, but it didn't define me anymore. After the meeting, Tyler and I grabbed coffee. So I've been thinking, he said with a grin. How about a sibling road trip this summer? Just you and me, making up for lost time. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'd love that, Ty. As we walked out into the sunshine, planning our trip, I realized something. Family isn't about blood or legal documents. It's about choice. It's about love. And Tyler and I, we were choosing each other every single day. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. We had years of hurt to work through, trust to rebuild. But for the first time in my life, I felt hopeful. We were writing our own story now. And this time, we'd write it together. Megan and Tyler's journey has come to an end, but now I've got a question for you. If you were in Megan's shoes, would you have turned in your grandparents for their crimes or kept quiet to maintain family peace? What would you have done differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hi everyone, I'm Elena, a 40-year-old social worker with a passion for helping troubled youth. I've been happily married to James for 15 years, and while we've built a good life together, there's always been a void. We couldn't have children of our own. It was painful, but after years of reflection, we decided to adopt. That's when Mia entered our lives, a 14-year-old girl with a tough history in foster care. James, are we really ready for this? I remember asking him the night before Mia moved in. He squeezed my hand and said, "We've got this, Elena. We'll give her the family she deserves." The first few months were anything but easy. Mia was distant, slamming doors and giving us the silent treatment, but I refused to give up. One day, I knocked on her door and asked, "Hey, Mia, want to go shopping?" She looked at me like I was crazy. "Why?" "So you can pretend to be my mom." "Nope," I replied, "so I can see your style in action, maybe even steal some tips." That got a small smile out of her. It was progress, a tiny step forward. Slowly, I thought we were becoming a real family, but James was spending more and more time at work. Another late night? I'd ask, and he'd respond without even looking up from his phone. "Big project, honey. You understand." Thank goodness for Olivia, my best friend, who became my rock through it all. "You're doing amazing with Mia," she told me over coffee one morning. "I can see how much she's opening up to you." I beamed with pride. It wasn't easy, but it felt worth it. But then came the parent-teacher meetings. Mia was struggling in school. Determined to help, I advocated for her. "Mrs. Johnson, Mia has so much potential. She just needs extra support," I insisted to her English teacher. We developed a plan, and I started to feel like things were finally coming together. Mia's 15th birthday arrived, and I threw her a party. As I snapped a picture of us, I thought, this is it. We're finally a real family, but I had no idea what was coming next. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I couldn't shake a nagging feeling. Mia had been acting distant, more secretive than usual. At first, I chalked it up to teenage mood swings, but something felt off. "Mia, honey, is everything okay?" I called, knocking on her bedroom door. "I'm fine. Can I get some privacy?" she snapped. As I stepped back, I noticed a crumpled piece of paper in her jeans pocket. Curious, I pulled it out, a detention slip for skipping class with someone named Zoe. Later that night, I tried to talk to James about it. "I'm worried about Mia," I said. He barely glanced up from his phone. "She's a teenager, Elena. This is normal. Can we talk about it later? I've got a big presentation tomorrow." Frustration bubbled inside me, but I let it go. The next day, I confronted Mia about the detention. Big mistake. You went through my stuff. What's wrong with you? She screamed. I'm just trying to help, I said, keeping my voice calm. I don't need your help. You're not my real mom, remember? Her words cut deep, and we argued until she stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. Little did I know, that fight was just the calm before the storm. The next morning, I got a call from Mia's school. My heart sank as I listened to the principal's voice. Mrs. Harrison, we need you to come in immediately. There's been an accusation. Sitting in the principal's office, I felt like the world was spinning as a CPS worker explained that Mia had accused me of physical abuse. This is absurd. I stammered. I would never. But the CPS worker remained stone-faced. We have to take all accusations seriously, she said. When I got home, James was waiting for me, anger etched on his face. How could you, Alana? He demanded. James, please, you know I'd never hurt Mia, I pleaded, but he wasn't listening. I think you should leave, he said, running his hands through his hair. James, no, please. Just go, until we figure this out, he said coldly. I packed a bag with trembling hands, tears streaming down my face. As I walked toward the door, I caught a glimpse of Mia standing at the top of the stairs. For a brief moment, I thought I saw regret in her eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by a cold, unfeeling stare. I ended up on Olivia's doorstep, a sobbing mess. Oh, honey, she said, pulling me into her arms. We'll figure this out, I promise. As I lay on her couch that night, unable to sleep, one thought raced through my mind. How did everything fall apart so quickly? And more importantly, how on earth am I going to fix this? I woke up on Olivia's couch, my eyes puffy from crying. For a moment, I hoped it had all been a bad dream. But the ache in my chest told me otherwise. This was my new reality, and I had no choice but to face it head on. We need a plan, Olivia said over coffee. You can't just sit back and let them destroy your life. She was right. I nodded, feeling a new sense of determination rising within me. I'm going to fight this. My first step was hiring a private investigator. I scraped together what money I had and found Marcus, a no-nonsense ex-cop known for uncovering the truth. Tell me everything, he said, pen poised over a notepad. I didn't hold back. I spilled it all. Mia's troubled past, her recent behavior, James's growing distance. As I spoke, Marcus's brow furrowed. This doesn't add up, he muttered. I've seen false accusations before. Let me dig into Mia's background. While Marcus worked his magic, I launched my own investigation. I reached out to Mia's former foster parents, my heart pounding with each call. Elena. Yeah, we remember Mia, one foster mom said, her voice heavy. Sweet girl, but she had a habit of making up stories when things didn't go her way. A pattern began to emerge. Mia had done this before. The realization was both heartbreaking and infuriating. Olivia helped me gather evidence, photos, texts, even a video of Mia and me laughing at her birthday party. Look at this, Olivia said, pointing to the screen. Does this look like an abusive relationship to you? I shook my head, tears welling up. Why would she do this? The answer came in an unexpected way. While gathering some clothes from home when James was out, I accidentally knocked over his laptop. As I picked it up, the screen flickered, revealing an email from someone named Amber. My stomach churned as I read the flirtatious messages between them. Son of a, I muttered, my hands shaking with anger. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. Hey, I got something. Mia's been texting with a girl named Zoe. You're not going to believe what I found. He sent screenshots of their conversations. My jaw dropped as I read the messages. Zoe encouraging Mia to make up the abuse story. It'll be easier to do whatever you want. Trust me, I've done it before. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but I still didn't understand why. That's when I got a call from an unexpected source. Mia's therapist. Mrs. Harrison, I'm breaking confidentiality because I'm concerned, she said. Mia admitted in our last session that she made up the abuse. She said she felt neglected by your husband and thought this would force him to pay attention. My heart broke all over again. In trying to get her father's attention, Mia had torn our family apart. Armed with all this evidence, I prepared a file for Child Protective Services. As I organized everything, I felt a bittersweet mix of vindication and sadness. I was going to clear my name, but at what cost? You ready for this? Olivia asked as we drove to the CPS office. I took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be, it's time for the truth to come out. Walking into the CPS office felt like marching into battle. My hands were trembling, but my voice stayed steady as I presented the evidence. I understand this is a lot to take in, I said, watching the CPS worker's eyes widen as she flipped through the file. But I hope this proves my innocence. Hours of questioning followed. It was exhausting, but I held my ground. Finally, they agreed to reevaluate the case. The next day, I got a call I never expected. It was James. Elena, we need to talk. Can you come home? I steeled myself as I walked through the front door. Mia was there, her eyes red and swollen from crying. James looked like he hadn't slept in days. Mia has something to say, James said, his voice cracking. Mia stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I lied. You never hurt me. I wanted Dad to notice me. The confession hit me like a ton of bricks. I wanted to be angry, to scream, but seeing her so broken, all I felt was exhaustion. Why didn't you just talk to us? I asked, my voice weary. I tried, Mia cried. But Dad was always working, and you're not my real mom. I thought if I caused trouble, he'd finally pay attention. James hung his head in shame. I've been a terrible father and husband. That's when I dropped my own bombshell. Speaking of being a terrible husband, want to tell me about Amber? His face went pale. How did you? It doesn't matter. I cut him off. What matters is that we're done. I'm filing for divorce. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Mia was mandated to attend intensive therapy. James moved out, his affair exposed at work, leaving his reputation in shambles. As for me, I focused on healing. I started a support group for falsely accused parents. Turns out, my story wasn't as unique as I thought. You're so strong, one woman told me after a meeting. How did you get through it? I thought for a moment, one day at a time, I said, and by remembering that their actions don't define me. 2 years flew by. I threw myself into my work, helping families navigate situations like mine. It wasn't easy, but it was fulfilling. One crisp fall morning, I was sorting through my mail when I saw it, a letter from Mia. My heart raced as I opened it. Dear Elena, I know it's been a long time, and you probably hate me. I don't blame you. What I did was unforgivable. I'm in college now, studying psychology. I want to help people like me, people who make terrible mistakes. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. You deserve better. I hope one day you can forgive me. Love, Mia. I sat there, letter in hand, tears rolling down my cheeks. Part of me wanted to reach out and say I forgave her. But another part, a stronger part, knew that some bridges can't be rebuilt. I folded the letter and put it away. Maybe someday I'd be ready to respond, but for now I was focused on my new life and my new purpose. I had survived the worst betrayal imaginable and come out stronger on the other side. As I headed out to my support group meeting, I smiled to myself. Life had thrown me one hell of a curveball, but I hit it out of the park. And you know what? I was just getting started. Now, as this story comes to an end, I have a question for you. If you were in my shoes, would you forgive Mia for her false accusation? Or do you believe some betrayals are too severe to ever truly forgive? This is a tough one, isn't it? There's no easy answer. Share your thoughts in the comments below.